Hello. So what we're going to do today is learn how to do basic retouching in Photoshop using non-destructive techniques. The first thing we're going to do after we open up Photoshop is go to File, Open, and open the image that's been provided for us. And the technique that we're using is called non-destructive editing. And what this means is every edit that we make, we're going to put it on a new layer so that if we want to make a change, if we want to go back to the way the image originally looked, all we have to do is hide or delete a layer and make changes to those individual layers without having to start all over again. The workspace that we're using here in Photoshop is the Essentials workspace. So if you go up to Window up at the top of the screen and click Workspace and then click Reset Essentials or click the Essentials default, you'll have the same workspace that I have set up. Now, the two things that we're going to be using are the Layers panel and the Tool panel. And the first step is we are going to make a new layer on top of this image. And we're going to use that new layer to do our retouching. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go over here to the Create a New Layer button, which is the square with the plus sign inside of it at the bottom of the layer panel. You can also hit Shift-Command-N to make a new layer. Next, we're going to use the Spot Healing brush tool to remove some blemishes. Now, really important, the frequently asked question I get from students is they'll say, I'm attempting to use the Spot Healing brush and nothing is happening. That's because you need to go up to the top of the screen and you need to click Sample All Layers. And you need to make sure that you have your new blank layer checked and you have Sample All Layers up at the top of the screen checked. There are a couple of options: Proximity Match and Content Aware. I find that Content Aware is great for background blemishes and blemishes on skin that's very kind of soft and smooth. And Proximity Match is better for skin that has a little bit of texture to it. So I'm going to start with Proximity Match. We're going to see how it goes. And if we want to, we can switch to Content Aware. Now, right now, my brush has a very hard edge to it. And I find when the brush has a hard edge to it like this, some of the retouching turns out a little bit unnatural. So I'm going to reduce a little bit of the hardness to about 60%. Okay, next, I'm going to zoom into the picture, and the shortcut key I'm going to use to zoom in is going to be Command plus sign. So now we can look at the skin up close. And I also want to be, oh, by the way, I hit Command plus sign if I'm on a Mac. If you're on a PC, it'll be Control plus sign. And that's the plus sign located right next to your delete key. Now, the other tool that you're going to want to use as a shortcut key is the bracket keys. And these are found next to the letter P on your keyboard. And the left bracket makes your brush smaller, and the right bracket makes your brush bigger. So I would recommend making your brush about the same size as the blemish that you want to get rid of, maybe a little bit larger, and then scrub over it and see what happens. Now, sometimes what you end up scrubbing over looks great. And then sometimes it just doesn't look that good. So notice here, it looks a little bit blurry. So I'm going to hit Command Z to undo. Let's switch to Content Aware and let's just see what that looks like. So I'm going to scrub over it. And I'm actually liking what Content Aware is giving us a little bit better. And you can keep on scrubbing over until you get a nice smooth match. Good, so you'll just go through and use this to remove blemishes. And you can even use it to remove like these little extra hairs here. And, you know, just little things like swollen pores. And you can even use it to, you know, remove some of the fine lines under the eyes and things like that. So this is a really, really handy tool. And as you can see, it's a little bit of a tedious exercise. Oh, and something that I'm doing to move around the picture If you aren't familiar with this, I'm using 2 fingers on the trackpad just to scroll around. And I'm only using a trackpad to do this retouching. I'm not using a Wacom tablet or a mouse or anything like that. I'm just using my trackpad that's on my laptop. And I'm just clicking and dragging to do some of this retouching. There we go. And I could probably spend about 10 minutes going through and doing this. I don't want to bore you all too much. So I'm going to move on to the next thing that you can do on this. Let me see if there's just anything that's standing out. There's a little bit of strange coloring happening here. So sometimes just kind of going over it a few times, shrinking down your brush, and just want to kind of get rid of that weird little thing there. Now, our goal is not for skin that looks painted or skin that is completely smooth. Skin that has some texture to it makes it look nice and realistic. See, there is a little bit of discoloration there. So just kind of going over that and getting something that looks natural is good. And it's a good idea to zoom out and zoom in so that you can see what it looks like from far away and what it looks like up close as well. Now, something else that we can do is you'll notice that one eye looks slightly smaller than the other. And this is, everyone has slightly not quite symmetrical faces, totally normal in a human face. But if you wanted to just balance out those eyes a little bit, what we can do is something called the liquify tool. So I'm going to hit Shift Command Option E. And that's if you're on a Mac, Shift Command Option E. And what that does is it merges my retouching layer with my background. So now I have a new layer that I can use my liquify tool on. If you're using a PC, you'll hit Shift Control Alt E instead of Option. Shift Control Alt E. So 4 buttons all at the same time. So now those options will give you a merged layer. And then you'll go up to Filter up at the top of the screen. You'll click on Liquify and wait for it. And what we're going to use is something called the bloat tool, which is this one here. And what the bloat tool does is it makes things bigger. So I'm going to place my cursor right on his eye. I'm going to kind of make this cursor, again, I'm using the bracket keys next to the letter P on my keyboard to make my brush bigger. And I'm just kind of making my brush big enough to encompass the eye and the eyebrow. And then I'll just click once. I'm just going to make my brush a little bit smaller. Click once again. So you can keep on just clicking a little bit. Make the eye just slightly larger. And then you'll click OK. And so this is the before, and this is the after. Just a little subtle difference to sort of balance out the eyes a little bit. Now, the last thing we'll do is we'll do a little kind of overall color adjustment to everything using the adjustment layers. So I'm going to go down to the bottom of the layer panel. That is the circle that's light on one side, dark on the other. And you'll find, and that's called the adjustment layer tool. And it looks kind of like a little yin yang symbol down here at the bottom of the layer panel. Make sure you have your topmost layer selected, then click on this little yin yang symbol. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a little color balance. Now, right now I'm noticing a little bit of yellow in the highlights, I guess you could say, the highlights and kind of the midtones, and a little bit of red as well. So what we can do is kind of minimize that excess yellow and red. And by going over here after we bring up the color balance, and I'm going to move this yellow blue slider a little bit towards blue. As I'm doing that, I'm noticing a lot of magenta is starting to come through. So I'm going to move the magenta green slider a little bit towards green. There we go. and the red cyan slider a little bit towards cyan. Good. And now just a little subtle differences. Let's take a look at the eyeball on the color balance. That's before and that's after. And right now we're on the mid-tones. That's kind of like your general skin color. I'm going to go over here to the highlights. And the highlights are where I'm seeing a lot of the yellow. So I'm just going to drag this yellow slider a little bit towards blue, just like that. Before and after. Now you can really see that it was very kind of pink and red and yellow. There was a lot of those warm colors in this picture. Alrighty, now what I'm going to do is we're always going to save our native file format. That is the PSD file. So we'll go File, Save As. We're going to save on our computer. We are going to go to our GWD 205 folder, and we'll call this GWD 205 underscore week 1 and call it Retouch underscore your name. Now this PSD is purely for your own purposes. It's for your own ability to go back to this project and revise it and retouch it. But for submission, we're going to have you turn in a JPEG. So to turn in the JPEG, you'll go to File, Export, Save for Web. We're going to save this as a JPEG. And then we'll hit save. And we're going to go to our folder. There we go. And your teacher might also appreciate seeing the layers with all of your adjustments and seeing that you're working non-destructively. So you might want to submit a screenshot as well. And to make a screenshot, you'll hit Shift Command 3. That takes a picture of your whole screen. If you are on a PC, you'll hit the Windows icon on your keyboard, hold that down, and then you'll hit Print Screen, the Print Screen button. And then after that, if you go to your Pictures folder in your applications or in your folders, you'll find another folder inside the Pictures folder called Screenshots. And that's where the screenshot of your desktop of your screen went. And that's really handy because your teacher will be able to see all of your separate layers and see that you're working non-destructively. Alrighty, something that's really fun to do at the end of a retouching project is to hover over the little eyeball on the background picture, hold down the Option. If you're on a PC, you'd hold down Alt. And so that's what your picture looked like before you retouched, and that's after. Before and after. All right, you guys, have fun and reach out to your teacher if you have any questions.